In May 2001, Steven Spielberg had Amblin Entertainment commence the development of ideas for Jurassic Park 4, which he planned to produce. Initially, Jurassic Park 3 director Joe Johnston was not interested in directing the fourth film. In 2002, William Manahan was announced as screenwriter, and a release date was set for mid-2005. Kathleen Kennedy would produce the film, and Spielberg would serve as executive producer. In 2006, Spielberg said Johnston would direct the film, but by April 2007, Johnston was no longer involved as director. A release date of 2008 was expected, but was later delayed to 2009. By 2010, Johnston was involved with the project again and planned for the film to be the first in a new Jurassic Park trilogy. Johnston hoped to further develop the project with Steven Spielberg after they finished other projects, including Johnston's 2011 film, Captain America: The First Avenger. In 2011, writer Mark Protasiewicz was hired. He wrote 2 story treatments, neither of which were approved. Spielberg and Kennedy felt that the film did not yet have an adequate story. In 2012, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver were hired to write the script. The writers incorporated 3 ideas from Spielberg: a fully functioning dinosaur theme park, a human who has a relationship with trained raptors, and a human-eating dinosaur that escapes and has to be stopped. In March 2013, Colin Trevorrow was hired as director, and Patrick Crowley was announced as a producer alongside Marshall. Trevorrow and his writing partner Derek Connolly rewrote the earlier draft by Jaffa and Silver while retaining Spielberg's 3 story ideas for the film. The film's release was delayed by a year to give the writers time to perfect the script, and in September 2013, Universal confirmed the film's release date scheduled for June 12, 2015 for Colin Trevorrow's film Jurassic World.
Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. We have always filled gaps in the genome with the DNA of other animals. And if their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different. But you didn't ask for reality. You asked for more teeth.
I never asked for a monster.
Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being the cat.
Let them fight.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, Jim.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chills and Thrills for another episode on the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise. Connor here along with Chris, and today we are starting the new trilogy, or the Jurassic World trilogy, I should say. We did the Jurassic Park trilogy already, and now we are getting into the 4th film in this franchise from 2015, Jurassic World. So
not a trilogy anymore, I guess.
Yeah, now we got a 4th film coming out. I kind of, this is a little off topic here, but I kind of wish they would have went to the title like Jurassic Park Rebirth and got rid of the world for that one. But.
Yeah, I think it's very much it's a purely corporate IP branding thing. You know, the first Jurassic World film, because originally the pitch was going to be that each of these new movies was going to be like Jurassic World, then Jurassic something else, then Jurassic something else. They were going to just replace the word every time. But because Jurassic World was so wildly successful, and all of the merch and the apparel and the toys and everything had that branding, they just rolled with that as the new official branding of the franchise. And I think they're going to continue because the title of Jurassic World is, you know, pretty much all encompassing. You know, you could get, and not that this would be the deciding factor, but with the term Jurassic Park, there's kind of like, I can understand the pressure of like, well, if there's not any park involved with it, at what point is it still worth calling Jurassic Park? I think they kind of bit that bullet, went to Jurassic World, and I believe now at this point they will stay within Jurassic World as the brand of the franchise for the foreseeable future until 30 years from now when they remake the original film.
Well, and it makes more sense too with now the the dinosaurs, like the mosasaurus and everything, they're all over the planet. They're free roaming the Earth. So
Yeah, with
Jurassic
each
World
entry,
makes
it
more
kind
sense.
of becomes more justifiably called Jurassic World because with dinosaurs now part of the ecosystem of the planet, it is literally a bit of a Jurassic World. And so the park thing is outdated in more ways than one, I suppose.
Absolutely. But we are doing the first film to start these next four titled with the title Jurassic World from 2015. And Chris, I didn't get to see this in theaters. I believe you said you were able to see this
Wow.
in theaters.
Wow, you did not watch Jurassic World in theaters.
I trust me, it's one of my many regrets that come to the movie
So,
theater.
I was there opening night, of course. I that was Friends. I took my younger brother once, and within about a month of the movie coming out, that's when I got my job at the movie theater where I got free movies, and this thing was still playing in strong rotation throughout the summer. It was a massive hit. So altogether, I saw this film about 6 times in theaters, and I've seen pieces of the film countless times because when it was playing and you knew the movie was coming near the end, you'd go in and you'd watch the big dino fight at the end of the movie. It was just kind of perfect. So yeah, I got my mileage out of this one in theaters.
A buddy of mine, him and
I saw
I
it at a drive-in theater too. One of them was at a drive-in theater, so I saw it a number of ways.
see, I'm jealous when it comes to the drive-in because I love the drive-ins. Those are good. Those are good times being outside and just being not being in the theater, but being able to see it in the theater setting, like outside on the theater screen. Like a buddy of mine, we were as soon as this trailer dropped, like as soon as before the trailer dropped, we just heard about it in like pre-production. We were like, oh yeah, this is going to be a theater experience. Like, and as we kept getting closer and closer, hearing more about it, I'm one of those. I do a little too much digging when I hear that new movies are coming out, and I don't do like I don't go into the extensive stuff like some people do on YouTube and stuff like the trailer breakdowns, and I don't watch them, but I watch the trailers when they come out. So me and him were excited, and he works 12-hour days, and he's got at the time I believe he had like 4 or 5 kids already, and he's got more now, but
Oof.
he couldn't find the time, and I was like, well, damn it, like it was going to be a bro day, and I I don't believe I was seeing anyone at this time. I might have been, I mean, 10 years ago. I'm not 100%, but it was just like, well, I'm not going to go to the movies by myself. I'll wait for it to come out. I'll put it on the surround sound at home. And like I took this over to my dad's when it came out and watched it with him, and he liked it a lot. So it was just one of those things to where it was like I should have just went. I should have bit the bullet and went and seen it alone, or like asked
Mhm.
like one of my sisters or something. They're not really into this Jurassic Park stuff, but like other friends that I know that I have are, but I was just like, I'll wait for it to come out, and I'm still kind of mad that I didn't get to see this one on the big screen.
Yeah, that's a big one. Inception is a big one for me that I wish I could have seen in a theater. Outside of that, generally I'm pretty good as far as not missing stuff, and I will bite the bullet and see a movie in a theater alone. And at first, when you're younger, it's little odd and feels weird, like, oh, I'm just going to a movie alone. But I got to tell you, like when you just decide to go see a movie on your own time and you show up when you want, sit where you want, and do that whole thing, it's surprisingly peaceful and relaxing to just be like, I don't have to make conversation. I don't have to worry about someone saying something. I don't got to worry about someone else's phone going off next to me. Like I'm just in the theater alone, locked into the movie. Surprisingly, not a bad experience at all. It's more fun with your closest friends or relatives or whoever. I definitely say like, hey, give it a try. If like, don't let that keep you from seeing a movie. It's surprisingly relaxing.
Yeah, nowadays I don't care. If there's something I want to see, I'll go see it. Like I've
It's
been
like I'll
trying
I'll
to.
watch stuff at home alone all the time. So why do I care about going in somewhere and getting some peace and quiet and watching a movie alone?
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. What's the difference? When I was younger, I cared. I always wanted someone to go with me to kind of enjoy the film with me, I guess. And nowadays, I just don't care.
Yeah,
I'll watch
I
them
think
at home alone or in the theater.
I think Indiana Jones 4 was the first time that I went to a movie alone because none of my closest friends wanted to see it, and I didn't know enough people that were interested, and so I went, and it was, I felt so weird, but it was a pretty packed theater, so it's like you're not really alone. But like that was the first time I was like, man, I was like, I feel like a little bit of a dweeb seeing a movie alone, but I really wanted to see the movie and I really enjoyed it. So I'm like, you know what, screw that. Like, what's it matter, dude? If no one wants to go, I'll just go. You know?
Well, like the last couple years, like you and I have talked about, like I go to G Fest to watch the movies that they show down there before the
Mm,
actual festival, and
mm.
like this year, I'm like, damn, I don't know if I'm gonna have anybody to go with, and I was like, you know what, I'll go alone and I'll enjoy it with all the other Godzilla nerds, and I was like, I don't care, I'm gonna go anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Godzilla fans have a family wherever they go.
Yeah, especially when you're in a theater with however 400 or 500 more of them just
Yeah,
enjoying the film.
no kidding.
So speaking on Jurassic World, was there anything on this rewatch? Is there anything you want to talk about since you hadn't kind of rewatched it in a while that you noticed or liked a lot about it?
Um, Nothing that I'm gonna say up front. Like, I mean, other than like this movie's still excellent. I think it's actually incredibly well put together, and it has like a great structure to it, great pace to it, great take on the material. And like, there's a lot of little nitty gritty details and things that other people complain about that I'm like, no, that's not something to complain about. It's actually awesome, and we'll get into it. You know, a few minor nitpicks, but they're still just minor nitpicks. This thing in general, like this thing is an awesome Jurassic movie. Like it's fantastic. And we will delve into that as we continue the discussion of the movie.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Well, I'll give you some background on the film so we can continue getting on with diving into Jurassic World. Jurassic World is a 2015 American science fiction action film directed by Colin Trevorrow, who co-wrote the screenplay with Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, and Derek Connolly from a story by Jaffa and Silver. It is the first installment in the Jurassic World series and the fourth installment overall in the Jurassic Park film series following Jurassic Park 3 from 2001. This film stars Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Vincent D'Onofrio, Try Simpkins, Nick Robinson, Omar Sy, B.D. Wong, and Irfan Khan. Wong reprises his role from the original Jurassic Park film, set 22 years after the events of Jurassic Park. Jurassic World takes place on the same fictional island of Isla Nublar, located off the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. A successful theme park of cloned dinosaurs dubbed Jurassic World has operated on the island for years, bringing John Hammond's dream to fruition. The park plunges into chaos when a transgenic dinosaur escapes from its enclosure and goes on a rampage, while a conspiracy orchestrated by the park staff creates more dangers. Universal Pictures intended to begin production of a fourth Jurassic Park film in 2004 for a mid 2005 release, but was in development hell while the script underwent several revisions. Following a suggestion from executive producer Steven Spielberg, writers Jaffa and Silver explored the idea of a functional dinosaur park. Once Trevorrow was hired as director in 2013, he followed the same idea while developing a new script with Connolly. Filming lasted from April to August in 2014 in Louisiana and Hawaii, and the dinosaurs were created by Lucasfilms and Industrial Light and Magic using CGI and by Legacy Effects using life-size animatronics. Production for Jurassic World was completed in May of 2015, and Jurassic World was theatrically released in the United States on June 12, 2015 by Universal Pictures. It was praised by critics, with many considering it to be the best Jurassic Park sequel. On release, it set several box office records, including for the largest opening weekend, both domestically and worldwide. It ultimately became the second highest grossing film of 2015, the third highest grossing film of all time at the moment of its release, the highest grossing in the Jurassic Park series, and the highest grossing film released by Universal. Two sequels have been released following this film: Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in 2018 and Jurassic World Dominion in 2022, with Jurassic World Rebirth scheduled for release this year in 2025. So there's a little background on the first Jurassic World film.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, the electricity when this one came out. You know, I remember going into the weekend. You know, the box office forecast were saying like, oh, 150 million plus. You know, it's going to be big, and then it just seemed like, you know, some movies when they come out, them breaking the record for the opening weekend was kind of anticipated. You know, I remember, you know, Revenge of the Sith broke the opening day record in 2005, and that was like a hyped thing. And I remember everyone was so anticipated for Pirates of the Caribbean. It broke the opening weekend record. Everyone knew Spider-Man 3 was going to break the opening record. Everyone knew The Dark Knight was going to break the opening record. Like, it was like, sometimes when it would happen, everyone had an anticipation that the Avengers would have the biggest opening weekend of all time. There was this, sometimes you could see it coming. With this one, it felt like the day it came out, they were like, oh crap, this might be headed to the biggest opening ever. Like, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, the whole world loves the original Jurassic Park, and kids love dinosaurs, and everyone likes Chris Pratt, and the movie's really awesome. And like, just over the course of the weekend, it became a record crushing kind of movie. And it was just really nice to see that the franchise was kind of back on top again. So it was a lot of fun when it came out.
It was, especially growing up on the first three, and like the first one being like this phenomenal film, the second one kind of being like a lackluster film. Kind of it, not to bring it back to this, but it kind of reminds me of like Jaws and Jaws 2. Like the first two, the first one's phenomenal, Jurassic Park, Jaws. The second one, kind of it's like a mixed bag. Like, some people love it, some people are like, meh, not really a fan. And then the third one is terrible, and like, it's like the black sheep of the family in people's minds. And then you get this one that comes back, and it brings us back to like feeling of like the first one. Like, I don't ever hear people talk about this first Jurassic World and say like, oh, I didn't like that film. I thought it could have done this better and that better.
Only a few sticklers on the internet, will say it's this, that, and the other. It's like, but they're overruled. I'm sorry, but they are.
Yeah, when you're coming back to the franchise for the first time, and this was 14 years later after Jurassic Park 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you don't get a Jurassic Park film for 14 years, and this is the one that we get. I'm extremely happy with what we got, a little over a decade later.
Absolutely.
Why don't we go ahead and we'll march on into a trailer for Jurassic World. We'll get a plot synopsis right off, and then we'll get to some numbers, some fun facts, and as always, you'll get mine and Chris's favorite categories of the film.
I'm really proud of you for going on this trip.
You're gonna have so much fun. And remember, if something chases you, run.
We have learned more in the past decade from genetics than a century of digging up bones. A whole new frontier has opened up. We have our first genetically modified hybrid.
You just went and made a new dinosaur?
Probably not a good idea. Almost 40 feet high. Really think she climbed out?
Depends.
On what?
What kind of dinosaur they cooked up in that lab. Evacuate the island.
She's a highly intelligent animal. She will kill anything that moves.
Oh, God.
In the years after the Jurassic Park disaster on Isla Nublar, Masrani Global Corporation acquired InGen's assets and eventually opened a new dinosaur theme park on the island known as Jurassic World. Brothers Zach and Gray Mitchell visit the park where their aunt Claire Deering works as the operations manager. She assigns her assistant Zara to guide them, but they evade her and explore on their own. Navy veteran and ethologist Owen Grady has been training a Velociraptor squad composed of Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo, and researching their intelligence. Based on the Raptor's ability to follow commands, the head of InGen Security, Vic Hoskins, believes that the animals can be weaponized, an idea Owen and his assistant Barry vehemently oppose. Claire and Jurassic World owner Simon Masrani inspect the park's newest upcoming attraction, the Indominus Rex, a transgenic dinosaur created by geneticist Dr. Henry Wu. Masrani tasks Owen with evaluating the enclosure's security. Owen warns Claire that the Indominus lacks social skills, making it dangerous and unpredictable. When the Indominus seemingly escapes, Owen and two others investigate. The dinosaur, capable of camouflaging itself and masking its heat signature, suddenly appears and devours the other two men, but Owen manages to survive. The Indominus escapes into the island's interior. Owen urges Masrani to destroy it, but Masrani, trying to protect his company's investment, sends a unit to subdue it using non-lethal weaponry. After the unit is killed, Claire orders the northern sector's evacuation, while Masrani confronts Wu about the Indominus design. While exploring the park in a tour vehicle, Zach and Gray enter a restricted area. The Indominus arrives and destroys the vehicle, but the boys narrowly escape. They find the ruins of the original Jurassic Park Visitor Center, repair an old Jeep Wrangler, and drive back to the park resort. As Claire and Owen search for the boys, they barely escape the Indominus as well. Masrani and two soldiers hunt it down by helicopter, but it breaks into the park's aviary. The Pteranodons and Dimorphodons, startled by the Indominus, flee the aviary and fly into Masrani's helicopter, causing it to crash and kill its passengers. The escaped pterosaurs converge onto the resort and attack everyone, including Zara, who is then devoured by a mosasaurus. Zach and Gray find Owen and Claire at the resort as armed personnel shoot down the pterosaurs. Hoskins assumes command and orders the raptors to be used to track the Indominus, whereupon Owen reluctantly complies and spearheads the assault with the raptors. Upon finding it, the dinosaurs begin communicating among themselves. Owen realizes that the Indominus has Velociraptor DNA, and it usurps Owen's command of the raptors, becoming the pack's new alpha. Soldiers fire on the Indominus, but it escapes. The raptors slaughter most of the soldiers while Charlie is killed in the chaos. Hoskins evacuates Wu and the dinosaur embryos from the island to protect his research. Owen, Claire, and the boys find Hoskins at the lab securing more embryos, but Delta breaks in and kills him. Owen restores his bond with the three surviving raptors before the Indominus reappears. The raptors attack the hybrid, but Delta and Echo are killed while Blue is knocked unconscious. Claire releases the Tyrannosaurus Rex from its paddock and lures it to the Indominus. The dinosaurs attack each other, and the Indominus eventually overpowers the Tyrannosaurus. But Blue recovers and joins the battle. The duo fights the Indominus until it gets cornered at the lagoon's edge, where it is dragged underwater by the mosasaurus. The survivors are evacuated, and the island is abandoned once again. Zach and Gray reunite with their parents, while Owen and Claire decide to stay together. Ba, ba, ba.
Yeah. We got to do it every time.
I was trying to do the Jurassic World version, you know.
We were 3 for 3. We might as well make it 4 for 4.
Yeah, why not?
All right. How about I transition into some numbers for you? We get on to what Jurassic World made and what the budget was of this guy. So Jurassic World had a budget between 150 and 215 million. Most sites I have seen say 160 million, but others have spaced it between that 150 and 215, with a box office return of 1.67 billion. So Chris will have our inflation numbers for that.
Yeah, so that budget range of 150 to 215 million would be a budget range today, roughly 203 to 290 million. You know, the real answer is probably somewhere in the middle there. I always remember hearing 150 or 160 when it first came out. and then this 2 to 215 kind of seemed to pop up later. The box office result would be the equivalent of roughly 2.262 billion in 2025, which, if you look at the original 914 million that Jurassic Park made in 1993, that would be about 2.29 billion in 2025. So, relatively speaking, just so people can kind of get a sense, the worldwide performance of Jurassic World in 2015 was basically equivalent to the kind of worldwide performance that Jurassic Park had in 1993 in terms of their ticket sales. So that's the kind of pop culture phenomenon that it was. It was kind of almost on the same level, almost exactly the same. So that kind of puts things into perspective for people who maybe weren't around or old enough for the original.
Yeah, and these movies just they just keep making money. I mean, they space out their timing pretty well. Like every 3 or 4 years, we're getting another Jurassic World film, and I love it. Build the anticipation up. Make the
Yeah.
fans kind of wait a little bit, and then announce something big. Get a really kick ass trailer out, and then the movie does another billion in theaters. I mean, you can't really beat that. Plus, DVD sales, shirt sales, Blu-rays, 4Ks.
The toys. The kids love the toys.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I liked that, the original trilogy had this pace of 4 years between movies, and it looked like they were trying to do that again before things kind of went awry. But then the new trilogy, the Jurassic World trilogy, was keeping 3 years between films, 3 years between the first and second, and Dominion would have been 3 years if the lockdowns and everything hadn't happened and delayed everything. So that became a 4-year gap, which is more in keeping with the traditions of the franchise. But then now, 22 to 25, we've had another 3-year gap between entries.
I will be one of those ones that's always nowadays that's always at the theater for these films. I mean, that's just it's the way to see a lot of movies like this that I'm into nowadays. I seen Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. I'm definitely going to see Rebirth, and this is again the one I didn't get to see.
Yeah, I will. I'll never be able to not see one in theaters. I've got a buddy that's just as big. Well, he's probably a bigger fan than I am, even, and so there's no reality where we're all not going to see these movies.
The only ones I haven't seen in theaters, clearly are I didn't see this one, Jurassic World, and then I didn't see The Lost World, Jurassic Park. The first one I got to see at a drive-in, so I'm going to count that as my theater experience.
Yeah, I get to say I've seen them all because I've seen the various re-releases of the original. The Lost World was one of the earliest movies I remember standing in line for and then getting to go see in a theater. Definitely saw Jurassic Park 3 twice in theaters, and World was like 6 times. Fallen Kingdom was like 2 or 3, and Dominion I think was just the one.
Well, lucky you. No, must be nice.
Well, you got to be dedicated.
I'm sure we'll get a re-release sometime of the Lost World, and have whatever year anniversary coming up. I'm sure, and then Jurassic World, I'm sure that'll get an anniversary down the road. So they always re-release these films to make some more money off of them. So
yeah,
I'm sure we'll get them.
Yeah, if they did some kind of multi-week every film thing, I'd probably go to them all. Why not?
I mean, I've went to marathons where it was the first 8 Friday the 13th films in theaters all in one day. So why not do all?
Yeah, when the movies are 80 minutes long, that's a little easier to do than when they're all 2 hours, But I on 2 different occasions I saw the entirety of the Dark Knight trilogy in one day or night, and I did that on 2 different occasions. So if I can do that, I can watch at least a couple Jurassic movies in a day, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, because I'm sure that was a good 7 hours, 8 hours well spent.
Yeah, the first time was building up to the midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, so you get to the theater at like 5 or whatever, and you watch Batman Begins, get a little break, watch The Dark Knight, a little bit of a break that leads into the midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, but they forgot about our auditorium, so they didn't even start the pre-show until like 12:30 or 12:35, and so every time another trailer would pop up, a green title for the next trailer would pop up, everyone was booing because we just wanted to get to the movie because we all knew the movie was like 3 hours. And at that point, we were well beyond the midnight premiere time. So we were all just like tortured and wanting to see the new movie and staying up as late as we could. It was an amazing experience, but oh my goodness, don't want to repeat that.
Yeah, that sounds like a rough time.
And then the other one was for Batman Day, like 2 years ago or something. I just took my younger brother. He'd never seen the Dark Knight trilogy, and it was like it started more like in the morning or at lunchtime, and so you just kind of saw all three in a sequence, and that was just really fun for us to do.
And things like that are great. I love when they can do little like film festivals per se like that. Like them are fun.
Yeah.
I'll continue with some numbers here for you. Jurassic World is rated a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb, has a 72% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's our kicker right here, a 59% rating on Metacritic, and 83% of Google users liked this film.
Yeah, Metacritic's a little harsh.
Yeah, I think they're a little more harsh than Rotten Tomatoes is on a lot of these films.
It feels like there's sometimes kinder to certain movies, and then sometimes just like mainstream stuff. It feels like Metacritic is like every Marvel movie, every like big blockbuster that kind of gets most of the critics to like it. Metacritic's where like they're giving you like the harder answer, they're giving you the harsher score.
I don't get it. This film was praised by almost everything besides them, but my last number.
Sorry, the critics are wrong. I mean, this movie's awesome. I don't care what anyone says.
I 100% agree with you, and I mean, the fans have spoken; they agree as well. So, my last number here for you is there are 23 human deaths in this film, averaging to one death about just under every 5.5 minutes. So we get a really quick pace for this one, but a lot of them are in some pretty quick attack scenes with like the Indominus Rex and whatnot, but still fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
I will move right on into our fun facts because this is one of those films, we've probably had like 10 of them or so on this podcast where it's just endless amounts of like background, like fun facts and like behind the scenes information. So my first one for you here is that around an hour and 8 minutes in, when Zach and Gray find the main building of the original Jurassic Park Visitors Center, it is decaying and overrun with vines. There's a lot hidden within this scene, including when the dinosaurs ruled the Earth banner that fell after the T-Rex's final attack, as well as the bones of the staged dino fight. And then there's also the backlit painting of a raptor, just like the one behind which a raptor stalked Lex and Tim. And then Gray also plays with the night vision goggles that were featured in the original T-Rex sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people, call that, it's just a bunch of nostalgia bait or a bunch of fan service. But I mean, when you pick your battles on which scenes and sequences you use to kind of to go at that sort of material, it can work. Like there's nothing wrong with it. You just don't want it to be plastered all over the movie. One of my weird gripes is that they restart the classic Jeep Wrangler from the original film when, in terms of plot mechanics, it would have been better if they came across like a proper new Jurassic World Jeep, where maybe the drivers had been out looking for somebody or patrolling and they had gotten killed by the Indominus, but the Jeep was still intact. And like, because I mean, you can't just swap the battery out on a vehicle that's been sitting for 20 plus years and just have it start immediately again. Like it's plot convenience and this and that and the other thing, and it's a fantasy movie and it's not that big of a deal, but like they're just like, oh, this old Jeep that's set for 20 years, we're just gonna swap the battery out and it just runs like good as new. Like that's a little much, but that's okay.
That's one of the ones I was thinking about too, is like this thing, I don't care what you do to that thing after 20 odd
those
years.
Those tires would be flat, like everything, and like they don't even play it up in the movie like, it's not like, oh, they get it started and it kind of goes and it's barely sputtering along and it kills over before they get very far. Like you could have leaned into that a little bit to at least kind of make it a little believable, But it's like, and that sequence is filled with like the two little kind of annoying tidbits in this movie. Is it's like, he's like, hey, you still got those matches? Hey, you remember when we fixed up Grandpa's old Jeep or whatever? Like, it's just like, they're just pulling like hey, let's do this thing that we need right now because we need a fire in this scene and then we've got to make this old Jeep work. So like, hey, you remember when you had that stuff that we need? You remember when we did that thing that we need be able to do. It's like, the characters can only escape with a helicopter, and like right as they walk up to it, one of the characters is like, "Hey, you still know how to fly a helicopter, right?" It's just like one of the things you put in there to justify it. So that little sequence in general, like, kind of has like all of my biggest quips about this movie are kind of right there together.
Well, that thing's like you said, sitting there for 20 years, flat tires. It's got to be rusted out. Like there'd be so much wrong with that Jeep that I don't think a battery's gonna help anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet every car aficionado is like shaking their head at that sequence in the movie.
It's got the plot armor,
Yeah,
we have to do that for the plot. So it
those 92 Jeep Wranglers were built to last, man. They're built different.
My next one for you here is Claire, or Bryce Dallas Howard's character, is dressed in all white, thus paying homage to John Hammond or Sir Richard Attenborough from his character in Jurassic Park from 1993. Both were directors at their respective parks in the films.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Bryce Dallas Howard, not only does she look gorgeous in this film, but she gives a great performance. And I like that she's in that sort of Hammond-esque role, and I like what this movie does, and we'll talk about it some more. Is like people were saying things like, "Oh, this one's just like so like plain and viciously commercial." It's like it was doing that on purpose to kind of satirize the idea that the park had become this like insanely commercial product, like any theme park would. People are like, "Oh, when it does the close up of Claire and she says, 'Welcome to Jurassic World,' it has no weight or emotion or music or anything like when Hammond said, 'Welcome to Jurassic Park.'" It's like, yes, that's exactly the point. Hammond doing "Welcome to Jurassic Park" was this big cinematic moment, whereas Claire saying "Welcome to Jurassic World" is just this mundane, routine thing that she probably says to every investor group that comes to the park. And that's the whole point of it, is that it has become sort of this routine and this dialed in thing, and it's not impressive or cool anymore. That's kind of the whole point of the movie. When the one character is wearing the Jurassic Park shirt, and he says like, "Oh, that first park was legit. They didn't need hybrids. They just had real dinosaurs." It's like, that's a meta commentary on the whole relationship that this movie has to the original movie, and it's done on purpose. And I can't believe that people don't really get that.
I love every like subtle nod like that to the first film. When you see him wearing the shirt, or he's got the little dinosaurs that is on his desk, things like that are fun in these films, and some people just take it a little bit too literal and too serious.
Yeah, agreed. And one last thing on the introductions of characters in this movie is that, there's this classic kind of line of thinking that a hero gets introduced like where you start the camera like at their feet and then sort of pan up. Like Indiana Jones gets introduced that way in a couple of his movies, and Claire gets introduced that way when she's on the elevator. It starts at her feet and pans up, and then when Owen Grady is introduced, the camera sort of starts underneath him and pans up looking at him. And even when Blue is introduced, we start up with a close up of the feet, and it pans up to the close up of Blue's face. So like some nice traditional kind of narrative techniques with the camera being used here.
I didn't put that together until you just brought that up, so that is a good catch by you.
Yeah, this movie's got a lot going on that people don't give it credit for.
My next one for you here is at about 31 minutes into the film. The concept of sharks being used as dino fodder was director Colin Trevorrow's idea and was inspired by executive producer Steven Spielberg's Jaws from 1975. Trevorrow was initially nervous that Spielberg might see it as criticism towards his film Jaws, but Spielberg was very much amused by the idea and made sure that Trevorrow included that shot in the film of the mosasaurus eating the great white shark.
Yeah, and I remember someone pointed out, like, when it came out, they were like, "Well, how could a great white shark be being used as food for the mosasaurus? Aren't great whites like endangered or protected or whatever? This doesn't make any sense." It's like, well, one, this is a whole different timeline of reality. This isn't our world specifically. And then another one, I'm pretty sure, like, in the extra lore or background information, they talk about how those great white shark carcasses are like genetic clones or genetic replicants that they just spit out to have an endless supply of food for the mosasaurus. So, like, again, it's kind of internally logical.
Yeah, again, people taking stuff too literal, and like, what else are you gonna feed the mosasaurus to like show like the size of it? People know that great white sharks are large sharks, 15, 18, 16, they're large or they're large fish. So why not use that to show that you have a 70 or 80-foot mosasaurus or however big it was in this film? Like it's just a fun scene, and some people are like, it's a movie. Take it as a movie. Turn your brain off and have a good time.
Yeah, and it's not a flip of the bird to Jaws, although there was one moment where apparently where Steven Spielberg did kind of make an adjustment, was that there was going to be a scene where the Indominus Rex came across a sort of animatronic Tyrannosaurus Rex that was like on display as like part of the theme park, and the Indominus was going to come across the animatronic Rex and then destroy it. And it was meant to be sort of like setting up like, oh, the Indominus Rex is sort of more impressive than and more dangerous than the T-Rex. But Steven Spielberg was concerned that it would read like they were saying CGI is better than animatronics, like they were dishing on animatronics and not on Indominus versus T-Rex. So Spielberg kind of pushed them away from doing that bit in the movie, which I think he's probably right to do so.
There's another little bit kind of included in what you just said a little bit later that I have a couple more down, but I'll that kind of connects to that, but I'll do a couple other ones first, and then I'll get to that one. The T-Rex in this movie was revealed by director Colin Trevorrow to be the same T-Rex from Jurassic Park in 1993. Trevorrow said she's been on the island for 22 years, she's a little older, she's hungry, and she's angry. Of course, we all love that.
Yeah.
That is supposed to be Rexy from the original.
Oh yeah, everyone liked that, as the internet memes say. Like nobody ever, like, it's cool. She's still got some of the scars from the original movie. She's clearly got like a bit of an aged design. I like that as a piece of continuity. Like, it's not just a T-Rex; it is the T-Rex.
Absolutely. If you look closely, you can see that Simon Masrani wears a ring made out of amber that contains an insect in it, similar to how John Hammond carried a cane with a mosquito in place of a curved handle.
Yeah, that's a nice little, nice little touch. I like the various callbacks like that. It's always fun.
So here's what I kind of had with that went along with your animatronic one for the T-Rex. And at around 8 minutes into the film, a Spinosaurus skeleton can be seen in the City Walk area of Jurassic World. This skeleton was thought to have been the same one from Jurassic Park 3, but that has long been retconned. But to compensate for its lack of connection, the Tyrannosaurus Rex from the first film returns and breaks through it as an homage to Jurassic Park 3. It also symbolizes the T-Rex taking revenge for the fallen Rex in the third film. As director Colin Trevorrow says, we wanted to give the T-Rex its well-deserved revenge on the Spinosaurus.
Yeah, absolutely. It's visual. I'm always big on sort of visual storytelling and ways to kind of make a point in subtle and not so subtle ways just with the visuals. And yes, they're not being subtle when a T-Rex crashes through the bones of the Spinosaurus. Like, that's a little bit of a statement when you have the original. Because they famously, for Jurassic Park 3, replaced the logo of Jurassic Park from the T-Rex skeleton to the Spinosaurus skeleton. And this was, it's very much the T-Rex reclaiming its title as the mascot of the franchise by breaking through the bones of the Spinosaurus.
And I love it, because I was one of those people, clearly from our last episode, that was very upset that our T-Rex in that film was the Spinosaurus got the better of him. So I was one of the ones who enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, that the T-Rex was in the movie for 60 seconds.
Yeah. My feelings were sadly hurt in theaters of that film.
Mm-hmm.
So in Jurassic World, the Indominus Rex has only just about 7 minutes of screen time in this film.
Used very well, though, I think.
I think it is very effective.
And again, when you have multiple dinosaurs peppered all throughout the film, it's not so much about the one dinosaur's screen time. The movie is not called Indominus Rex, and they're not saving its debut for an hour in and then making you wait another 20 minutes to get another 5 minutes of it, and whatever. But it's used well and it's used effectively. You don't feel like you're ever being kept from enjoying the screen time of the Indominus.
Well, I like how we work up to it. We get like little pieces of it, of the eye and the claw, and then when the men are when it's containment, that we just get it from kind of like the chest down. We get to see its legs and arms, and then when it's eating one of the workers, we get to see just barely parts of its mouth and head. And then we finally, as the film goes on, we get to see it in all its glory after seeing like a little teaser here, a little tease here. I like when films do the build up like that for something such as the Indominus Rex, because I think the Indominus Rex in this film is phenomenal.
Yes, and the movie is kind of nicely bookended with the birth and death of the Indominus, and I've always liked that as well as like a narrative structure. You start off seeing it hatch, and then near the end of the movie, the climax of the movie, it gets killed.
Absolutely. At around an hour and 50 minutes into the film, when Blue helps Rexy fight the Indominus Rex, Blue is shown jumping on the Indominus, trying to claw out the Indominus eyes, and it seems to have succeeded on the left eye. So I don't know if you caught that its left eye was kind of all scratched out. And
that's a very nice detail. I never noticed that specifically, but I always did have fun seeing that Blue sort of will jump from the Indominus to the back of Rexy and then back onto the Indominus to attack. I always liked that.
Absolutely. It makes for a fun scene. I'm sure we will talk about that scene here shortly, but it definitely makes for a fun viewing experience.
100%.
This could have went in our numbers as well with the Indominus' screen time. Rexy the Tyrannosaurus Rex has only about 2.5 minutes of screen time in this film, and probably 2 minutes and 20 seconds are in that final fight scene.
Yeah. The final fight's fantastic. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we got two movies with the T-Rex, so clearly as these films go on, they're trying to do different things. The third one with the Spinosaurus, this one with the Indominus Rex, and it continues on with the next two films as well.
Yeah, they knew when to, this, if you're going to have a small role for a T-Rex, you have to kind of make it an important and valuable one and time it right. And I think this film does it very well.
Absolutely. At around an hour and 45 minutes into the film, the paddock door for Rexy opens directly into a path to the visitor pavilion, meaning that if the door somehow got opened unintentionally or accidentally while the park was open, there'd be nothing to stop her from eating all the guests and tourists.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a movie. Shut up.
I know. I found that one, and I was like, I'm gonna put this in here just to annoy Chris.
I mean, that's fun and that's understandable. But I mean, you honestly, here's the thing: in the whole park, if any of the paddock doors or anything got open, it would open up paths for those dinosaurs to go where they're not supposed to go. Like, you have to structure, like, these are big animals; they cannot be like easily moved. You can't just like airdrop them in. Like. They have to be able to be like trained and carried and moved around and positioned in places. Like, they have to at some point get to an enclosure that has a door big enough for one of them to easily get in or get out of. And it has to be like openable to an area that they can properly traverse and travel this thing. So it's like, yeah, any door that would open would probably lead to the paths where there would be people in a nightmare scenario. Like, that's the whole idea. Like, that'd be like saying like, oh, you go to the zoo and that line's behind that cage, and if that cage wasn't there, it could just go out and get everyone. It's like, yeah, that's the whole idea of the cage being there. Like, like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know. I mean, yes, that's how zoos work.
I'm trying not to laugh so hard at the zoo comment.
No, but I mean, like, it's the truth. I mean, you telling me that if that door opened accidentally, that T-Rex could just get out to all the guests? Yeah, just like if any zoo enclosure was opened accidentally, the animals would be able to access the guests.
And for the film, it, like we said, it's convenient for the plot as well, for the ending fight scene. So just deal with it. Turn your brain off again and have some fun. My last one for you here is, I know I told you that you said you had never played any of the Jurassic Park games, and I've played a bunch of them, including like the one titled Jurassic Park the game that follows the original 1993 film, where you got to go to the island and it picks up where you're looking for that Barbasol can with all the dinosaurs like DNA in it, and you got to like find that, track it down, bring it off the island. So that game I would highly recommend, especially if you're a Jurassic Park or a video game nerd. But my last fun fact mentions that this movie is not the first time a mosasaurus has appeared in the Jurassic Park franchise. It first appeared in the Telltale Games Jurassic Park from 2011, a cinematic game that takes place on Isla Nublar shortly after the events of the original Jurassic Park, where you gotta swim and get away from the mosasaurus. It's a fun little scene in the game, so it was fun seeing the mosasaurus make an appearance in this film.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It was always, you know, you want to see more of the classic dinos you love, but you also got to figure out ways to mix in new ones and fresh ones that haven't been seen in the films. And the mosasaurus is definitely a great one to have in this movie. And seeing it sort of displayed like how they would display, whales at SeaWorld is really fun. So I like that.
I would take a visit just to see, the mosasaurus eat a great white and get splashed front row.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
So that is all the fun facts I have for you. We got through them. I know I had quite a few. Do you want to go ahead and jump right into who your favorite character was for Jurassic World?
Absolutely. I'm sure it comes to the surprise of nobody that my favorite character was Owen Grady, played fantastically by Chris Pratt, and he's like this perfect hybrid of Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm and Muldoon from the original movie. And, he's kind of like the Raptor Wrangler, but he's also telling everyone why things are going to go bad and why things are bad ideas. But then he's also this like, resourceful, heroic kind of leading man kind of character. And, that's all of the best attributes of those three characters from the original movie. And I think Chris Pratt nailed it.
I am in 100% agreement with you. I chose Owen Grady's or Chris Pratt's character, and I just thought he was fun. He's the Raptor trainer. He's kind of like the no nonsense guy when it comes to Claire or any of the upper management or anyone. Like he's just not dealing with it, and he kind of likes to have things his way. But he's a little snarky. He's got some quick little one liners in here, and he was just a very fun character, especially with him being like having Blue and Delta and like the Raptor group. I thought he was definitely the best character in the film.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Claire's an excellent character as well, but how do you not love Owen?
Exactly. Claire's she's important to the plot because I guess she's kind of the one, she's in charge of the park. But
And
when
she
it
has
comes
the
to
most complete character arc of the movie in terms of being a very like her perspective on the dinosaurs and the animals and her family changing from the beginning to the end of the movie. She has the most dynamic character arc for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I liked the little bit of we got of Masrani. I liked him. Flying parts of him flying the helicopter. I thought were a little comedic and fun. And it's just that Owen Grady was the biggest standout. I mean, like we said, it's Chris Pratt. I mean, they put him in there to be the standout character, so it's hard not to choose him.
Yeah, 100%.
So we are doing our favorite scores clearly for the Jurassic Park franchise because the music in these films is awesome, and I chose one that went along with my favorite scene, and it was Our Rex is Bigger Than Yours, and it was just
I'll cut you off because we're in 100% agreement there.
It's the scene it's the music that accompanies the climax of the film, and it's just awesome. There's nothing more I can say about it. It was my favorite. I would like to, honorable mention to Welcome to Jurassic World, kind of its own little mix of the original Jurassic Park theme. And I love that one as well, but I had to go with Our Rex is Bigger Than Yours.
Yeah, 100%. Can't beat it. You better play the best part of it when you do the clip. But yes, it's exceptional. It complements the scene and sequence that it's used in perfectly. Michael Giacchino kind of hits it out of the park with his score here. You know, nobody is John Williams, but Michael Giacchino does the series well with this entry. And from what I understand, he had done work on some Jurassic Park video games in the past prior, so he'd sort of been gearing up for the job in some ways, so to speak. So good for him to get the big gig and nailing it the way he did.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, he definitely did justice. I love the music in this film, and I've always been one to pay attention to the music in these films or other films. So I was glad to hear we got a little bit. Of course, we're going to get the Jurassic Park theme, but the music in this doesn't shade too far from the other films. It stays pretty close to home, so I like that as well.
Yeah, it feels sort of new, nostalgic also. You know, I remember one of the great quotes is he said like that even the end credits music where he knew people were going to be getting up and leaving the theater as this end credits music was playing, that he even kind of designed that piano to kind of be like the kind of music you might hear if you were sort of getting up and exiting a church or something like that, you know, just to kind of give this like reverent, reflective sort of, you know, exiting the building with the crowd kind of a music. And it's like, man, it's like he really did, you know, think through it all in a very strong way. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. What was your favorite quote from the film?
So there's a couple. If I had to pick a line that I'd feel was the most sort of encompassing of the theme of the movie, it would be a line that Owen has where he's talking to Hoskins and he says, maybe progress should lose for a change. I think that scene between Owen and Hoskins after the Raptor demo is sort of the same kind of scene in this movie that the discussion around the table was in the original movie, where all of the sort of themes and the conflicting perspectives of the film are kind of getting hashed out right there in dialogue. You know, Hoskins is talking about using these animals in war, and Grady's saying like, you know, like usually the tests don't end well. This was one that kind of barely succeeded. You know, you only learn everything you want to know about these animals, you know, and things like that, and and it's just a great sequence. And I feel that the whole movie kind of the sort of antagonistic side of the movie is that the Indominus is this big, new, awesome, specially designed dinosaur, and the whole movie it's just like kicking the butts of the other dinosaurs, killing the other dinosaurs, killing people, getting the better of all of the soldiers and security operatives, and just always sort of getting away or getting the better hand of every situation. And it's sort of the new dinosaur, and that the sort of big kind of theme of this movie is that maybe, you know, again, maybe progress should lose for a change. And in the climax of the film, we have the two classic mascots of the franchise, the T-Rex and the Raptor, teaming up to kill this new evil dinosaur that's trying to sort of quote unquote like take over the franchise. And I just really like that a lot.
Yeah, that's not one that I would have thought of for either one of us to pick. That was a deep pull from you there. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I'm sorry that again, this movie has more going for it than a lot of people give credit for. It's not just a big dumb Jurassic sequel. Like there's a lot of effort in here. There's a lot of layers to appreciate.
There absolutely is, and there's a couple other funny quotes that I'll mention in a little bit, but my favorite quote came from Dr. Henry Wu. It was nice to get him back in this film. I liked seeing him. You know, we haven't seen him since the first film, but it was a small little brief conversation between him and Masrani, and they're talking about the Indominus, and Henry Wu goes, "Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. We have always filled gaps in the genome with the DNA of other animals. and if the genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different. But you didn't ask for reality. You asked for more teeth. And Masrani replies, I never asked for a monster. And Wu replies to him with, monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being the cat. And I like that because it puts the whole film into perspective that there's nothing they can do against this Indominus Rex. And they did genetically design a monster that, you know, it's at the top of its food chain. So I thought that was a fun little back and forth between them.
Yes, and it's also a great sort of spelling it out for the audience, like, hey, all of you sort of dinosaur purists that always complain about how the dinosaurs would or would not look or what's scientifically accurate or not. It's like, hey, none of these were ever pure dinosaurs. They never were. They were always genetic hybrids to some degree or another, just a matter of what they were hybridized and to what extent. So it's like, yes, it's like they're not genetically pure dinosaurs. They would look very different if they were. They're all monsters to some degree or another. So get over that and just enjoy the dinosaur aesthetic that the Jurassic franchise has and kind of like get on board with it. You know, I also like that it's kind of talking to that side of the audience as well. That is like, why don't the dinosaurs have feathers? Why don't they this? Why don't they that? It's like, well, these aren't pure real dinosaurs. So there you go.
Absolutely. That is it's great. Like,
and
you
plus
said,
we all know all the dinosaurs are dragons anyway.
And they all eventually became birds. So all right, so you went first for quote. I will mention a couple other ones, just some of Claire's nephews saying like, your boyfriend's a badass. Like, that gave me a good laugh from the film. And then where they're like, we can we stay with you? And she's like, I'm never leaving you again. And they're both like, no, him. They point to Owen and no, him. We want to stay with him.
Yeah, I like, you know, when he points out the raptors to the kids and he says Blue's the beta and they go, which one's the alpha? And he goes, you're looking at him, kid. Like, that's such a like vintage Harrison Ford kind of Indiana Jones energy to that, you know. And then, you know, when she's like, you can pick up their scent, can't you? Track their footprints. And he goes, I was with the Navy, not the Navajo. Like, you know, it's like just some great lines, you know. Like, you know, Chris Pratt can't help himself but kind of being like charming and funny. He dials it down a lot for this movie, but like, you can't help but enjoy his performance as the sort of leading man.
No, absolutely. He's fun. And there's some other lines in this film that are funny, you know. But I'll get on to my favorite scene, which I of course I have my favorite, and then I have like an honorable mention. But how my hands down favorite scene was the T-Rex and Indominus Rex fight. I don't know if you're going to be with me on that one. So a lot of the times when it's something like that, we'll match up.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one. That is like, that's not just the best scene of the movie. That's like an all-time great cinema scene, period. You know, again, just, you know, from, you know, giving the Rex the hero's entrance, so to speak. And then, you know, I'll use this opportunity to talk about Claire and her heels, because a lot of people make a lot of jokes about she wears the heels the whole movies. They wouldn't be that durable, da 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 da. A big part of Claire's character arc in this movie is that she goes from being the sort of buttoned up, pure dressed, all white businesswoman to being this more, you know, letting her hair down, getting a little dirty and sweaty, you know, wearing the sort of tank top and getting in the wild kind of, yeah, and also a more maternal figure, from like a job focused woman to being someone who cares about her family and things like that. But the idea of her not having to take her heels off for that, because heels are a very feminine thing. They're a sign of like femininity, you know, and so she doesn't have to sacrifice that to go on this character arc. So that's like the symbolic meaning behind why she keeps her heels on. And then the in-universe meaning is that she's an absolutely rich woman who lives on Jurassic World Island. And so naturally she would probably have like the most carbon fiber reinforced money can buy heels ever. Like, they would be designed to be able to undergo the wear and tear of living on an island because she works on an island. So long story short, shut up about the heels. It's a perfectly good visual. And then beyond that, though, you have the T-Rex bashing through the Spinosaurus skeleton that we talked about earlier, sort of becoming the hero of the franchise again. And then, you know, you get convinced just enough that the Indominus is going to kill the T-Rex, and I'm thinking to myself when I'm sitting in the theater, I'm like, this is bullcrap. Like, there's no way they're bringing the T-Rex back and it's getting completely demolished by the Indominus. Like, you are not about to kill the original Rex with this new stupid dinosaur. And then, when all hope is lost, Blue comes in with the sort of music playing that's, I think, keyed back to The Lost World, and jumps in and saves it. And, when animals are in distress and about to die, you just feel bad for them because they can't comprehend things. So it's like, you're feeling bad for Rexy, and then like another animal coming in to save an animal. Like, it's just this nice kind of like nature moment. And again, just an amazing climax to the movie. And I love it to death.
Well, and it's not to go off your point about the heels. It's not like they're 4-inch tall heels or something. They're not very tall. So, like you said, people shut up, quit complaining about the heels. I don't have a problem with them.
Well, and they talk about her being able to she outruns the T-Rex in heels. It's like the actual, like, they play that stuff in slow motion. The actual distance from where she runs to where the T-Rex lands in the courtyard is not a very long distance. She gets a head start before the T-Rex even starts to move its gait. Like, a T-Rex can't just burst into a sprint. Like, it has to start walking to build up speed. Like, a T-Rex probably can't really so it's like one of those things. And it's an old T-Rex too. It's not going to have a top speed of a peak specimen T-Rex. So it's like, you have to consider all these things. It's not like she outran it for like a mile, it's like she got a head start, it got a slow start, and it was really not a very long distance. And then she goes under the skeleton, it had to break through the skeleton. Like, so people the way that people LOL, that makes no sense at that scene, really doesn't add up. That's all I gotta say. Rant over.
Well, and then earlier in the film we get a T-Rex feeding. We get like 10 seconds of the T-Rex, so it's like, all right. As soon as the kid but right before we get to the climax of the scene, says he's counting the teeth and he's like, teeth, we need more teeth. My first thought was T-Rex. Like, it better be the T-Rex. Like, my first viewing of this, I was like, if it's not the T-Rex, I'm going to be pissed off. Like, what else are you going to get?
Yeah, and it plays into the lore. Like, they use the flare to draw out the T-Rex earlier to feed on the goat. Like, that's like a lore bit. So, like, she grabs the flare because she knows that T-Rex sees that flare and thinks like, oh, time to eat, Like, that's like been conditioned into it at this point. So she's going to follow. And then naturally, once you see an enemy or a rival sort of dinosaur, the Indominus is so aggressive that the T-Rex will answer in kind.
Well, in my first time viewing, of course, it was in my living room, surround sound cranked up, all that. So as soon as you hear the footsteps and you see the T-Rex, I'm sitting up, I'm getting ready. I'm like, all right, here we go. Pardon my language, but the T-Rex got treated kind of like a little puss in the last film. So I'm like, you got to make up for this. And then you get the phenomenal entrance with the T-Rex roaring, and I'm thinking, you know what? If this director's going to do this right, this T-Rex is going to come out and just kick the shit out of this Indominus. And the Indominus Rex starts just handling business. And I'm like, really? Pardon my language again, but you're going to treat the T-Rex like a little bitch 2 films in a row? I am not having this. If the T-Rex gets killed, this is going to kill this movie for me. It's going to knock it down 2 letter grades. We're not doing this again. And like you said, Blue comes in, and then as soon as the T-Rex is able to get back up and get a hold of the Indominus, it controls the fight from there on out until the mosasaur ends up grabbing it and taking it into the lagoon. And I was all on board as soon as the T-Rex got up and started handling business. I was like, all right, finally, thank you.
Yeah, and it was to make you feel even worse, it was a complete erupt into applause and cheers moment in the theater when that T-Rex bursts through that Spinosaurus skeleton and has its hero shot. To me, it gave me the same kind of goosebumps, this is awesome kind of feeling as when the Avengers are finally assembled in the first Avengers movie and you get that kind of 360-degree shot of all of them. It was those same kind of oh, this is such an awesome cinematic moment, So yeah, you were wrong to not see it in theaters.
I know. I should have just went by myself and bit the bullet.
Yeah. But yes, iconic scene, classic scene. I remember one of the early reviews said something like, "Oh, the last 10 minutes of the movie, or the last 20 minutes of the movie is just like cinematic bliss." And I'm like, what do they build up to at the end of this movie that makes it so good? And so you see it, and it's like, yeah, they kind of, they didn't hold back. It was very nice.
Yeah, when I took it over to my dad's, he brought up Jurassic Park 3 because as soon as the T-Rex and Indominus kind of squared up, he looked at me and he goes, "Is this going to be Jurassic Park 3 all over again?" I was like, "No, I didn't say nothing." And when the fight went on, he's not too much of a big movie person, as I've stated before, but he enjoyed this film and he liked the fight scene, and he's like, "All right, so the T-Rex got its revenge," and I'm like, "Damn right it did, kind of." It wasn't the Spinosaurus, but we got the better of a bigger, meaner dinosaur, I guess you could say.
Yeah, a spiritual revenge.
Yeah, we'll a win is a win in our book for the fanboys of the T-Rex.
Yep.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is the ending scene. We get the Jurassic World, some music kicking in at the end, and Rexy kind of walking along the helipad, and we get the ending roar as the screen goes to black. I liked that.
You've brought up something fantastic that I wanted to talk about, which is someone pointed this out, that if you look at that helipad at different points in the movie, it is almost as if it's being used to kind of signify who's sort of in control or in power at that point in the movie. You get scenes where early on where Claire's up there, or it cuts to Claire after we're seeing the helipad during like the one big long tracking shot of the park. You get Masrani up there when he's insisting on flying the helicopter, which isn't like a funny ego thing. Like, he didn't want anyone else to have to risk their lives. So like when he's like, we don't need anyone else, it's like, that's him trying to like do something noble and not sacrifice anyone else potentially on the helicopter. And then you get the scenes where Hoskins goes up there and he's overlooking things. And it's like Hoskins kind of like is in the position of power. And so of course, at the end of the film, when Rexy is up there and roars, it's like that's who's sort of reigning over this kingdom now, and all is how it should be. And so that's like another great sort of just a visual thing that the film uses to kind of showcase some of what's going on, and I love that as well, and wanted to give that a shout out. Again, there's more going on in this movie than people give it credit for.
100%, and that is why I have Chris here to tell you guys what's going on.
People talk about like, oh, especially like the product placement and commercialism. It's like, yeah, they're leaning into that because it's an actual theme park, so a theme park would have that. Like when they do like, oh, Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex, like you have the character making fun of the fact that they're doing that to let you know that the movie is in on the joke. Like the movie's not like, oh, isn't that so awesome, Verizon sponsoring our dinosaur? It's like, no, it's like, this is the sad truth of what it would be, but that would also be lame and stupid, like that's the whole point.
Absolutely. It's like, just like football stadiums or baseball stadiums, they're all named after an insurance company or something like that. So something that's bringing in, or that Jurassic World expected to bring in probably millions of dollars in revenue, this new Indominus Rex, it has to be sponsored by something. So Verizon it was, I guess, for this film.
Exactly.
Well, that is all I have for you on the original Jurassic World. I did want to get your opinion as on a couple things, the new raptors we got in this film. And
before we move on, can I talk about the death of the character Zara?
Oh,
she gets a prolonged death where she's sort of picked up by the flying dinosaurs and dropped in the water, and then they dive in and attack her, and then the mosasaurus comes up and eats them both, and everyone, for starters, the actress requested a long, over-the-top, prolonged death because she just thought it would be really cool and really memorable. So it wasn't anything that was like done against her wishes. But also, there was a bit of outrage when this movie came out that it was like, why is the movie being so mean to a female character? It's senseless. Like, she didn't deserve it like a lot of characters in other movies that deserve their deaths. It's like, well, Eddie, who got ripped in half in the second movie, was a hero and he got a horrible death. It's like the characters in these movies don't have to necessarily deserve their horrible deaths. but also, we're 4 movies in, and this is the first time that a female character has been killed in this franchise. And I think I don't remember exactly everything about Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, but I'm pretty sure she still remains the only on-screen female character that has been killed in this franchise. And yet somehow people still want to throw fits about it and say that it was mean and sexist and all this other things. It's just needlessly excessive. It's like that. The whole point of it was to have an over-the-top, chaotic dinosaur death sequence where you didn't know how much worse it was going to keep getting. And so people who have outrage over that scene can just really shut up about it, because I'm sick of hearing it.
As soon as we mentioned the Eddie death in the second film, and you said there was a death later on in the franchise, I kind of knew that you were targeting that one in this film.
I gotta go on it. Like, again, the outrage over it made zero sense, and it was so strong that I guess they were like, well, we can never kill off another female character in these movies again. And it's like, that's horse manure. That's ridiculous. Like, I can't stand it.
Do you wanna go and get controversial and say, who deserved to live more, a babysitter who couldn't keep track of kids, or Eddie who was trying to save people's lives?
Exactly. She,
Now
and even before she gets plucked up, she's yelling at the kid. She's like, "Don't just stand there," or whatever. And you hear her on the phone earlier. She's like trying to keep her fiance from having a bachelor party. She's like, all his friends are animals. He's not having a bachelor party. It's like, man, it's like, you know what? Like, maybe that mosasaurus did a couple people a favor. I don't know. But again, the whole point of it was just to you can't get very grisly and gruesome with the deaths in these movies. They're PG-13. So how do you have a wild death scene for a character that's not an extra? Because if it was just a rando, it wouldn't mean anything, but you don't want it to be one of the very prominent characters, because these are kind of family movies. So it's like, it has to be a character that people kind of know, or it's like, oh, hey, that's that person. But then also that they're not all torn up about that person getting killed. That's usually where these Jurassic movies kind of land with the characters they kill off. And so Zara, it was just Zara's ticket this time, simple as that.
And it gives a great scene for the Pteranodon and the Mosasaurus. So we get the Pteranodon and Mosasaurus, a phenomenal scene for those two, and then a great death scene in the film. So
yeah,
I'm not complaining whatsoever.
And someone pointed out that if you have a proper sound system, you can hear that she's still screaming when the Mosasaurus chomps down on her and goes back underwater, that you can still hear her muffled screams inside its mouth. So that's great.
So it's really bad. They did her in pretty good.
Yeah, it's not an instant death.
Well, before we get out of here, I wanted to, of course, we're going to do our ranking of these 4 films, but I wanted to just get your opinion on what you thought of the new designs for the Raptors and then the Indominus Rex, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're good looks. The CGI in this movie can sometimes feel a little inconsistent, not necessarily so much with how realistic the renders are, but some of the movement, particularly some of the movements of the Raptors, can feel a little jittery sometimes. I'm not sure how else to really describe it, but it doesn't feel quite as smooth and natural. Sometimes it feels a little jittery and animated in a way that doesn't feel, the reality of the weight and the reality of the movement doesn't feel very, very real. And that's the worst thing you can say about it. But outside of that, that's a minor thing. And outside of that, I don't have any real complaints. I think the Raptor designs are good. I like Blue's design. I like that they made her stand out. I think the Indominus is a cool look. They're designing a movie monster, so it gets to be a movie monster. It basically gets to have the best traits of the size of the T-Rex, or bigger than the T-Rex, as they say, while also having the more workable claws and hands that the Raptors have, and the higher intelligence, and of course it gets the camouflage, because why wouldn't it? That would just be cool. So they get to do their cool movie dinosaur without having to worry about basing it off of any properly existing skeleton.
Absolutely, and I like the Raptors as well. I like that we got a pack of them in this one. We get the 4. And I love how they do eventually use them to kind of hunt down the Indominus, and Chris Pratt's character is I know why they didn't tell us what that thing's made of. It's part raptor, and the Raptors eventually turn on him, and then they come full circle and turn back around, and are they team up with the humans and the Rex. I definitely like the Raptors in this film. Of course, I love seeing Rexy, and the
Yeah.
Indominus is an awesome like added dinosaur to this one.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say I like the Indominus Rex better than the Spinosaurus, just for
Oh, I
design.
do. I
I
do.
think, yeah.
Yeah. Spino definitely is cooler than the or the Indominus definitely cooler than the Spino, in my opinion.
Okay, design wise, I think I like the Spinosaurus. For movie wise, I would definitely have to go for like antagonist. I like the Indominus in this film, but for design, I think
Although
I
there
like.
is no shot of the Indominus that is as cool as when they turn and see the Spinosaurus with the cell phone going off. That the aura that Spinosaurus has in that shot at the gate when they turn around and see it just standing there. Nothing that the Indominus does is as cool as that. But I do prefer the Indominus. I want to give a shout out to the scene where they find all of the long neck dinosaurs and the one is dying in their arms, and that's a really sad scene, and that's a great moment. I want to give a shout out to that, and I want to shout out that earlier in the movie they set up that whatever the raptors look at is usually what they want to eat, and then when the raptors get a new alpha and turn on the humans, it cuts to the head cams of all four raptors, and they're all looking right at Owen. Like that's like great. I love that moment too.
Absolutely, and I mean this film is fun, but I love this film, and I mean, why don't we go ahead and go into our tier ranking as we go through these films? We're ranking where we think these films are worst to best in the series. So, would you like me to kick it off, or do you want to?
I mean, sure. I'll go first. And I'll start worst to best. So, in the four Jurassic films we've talked about so far, I would unfortunately put Jurassic Park 3 at the number 4 spot. I would put The Lost World Jurassic Park in the number 3 spot. I would put Jurassic World in the number 2 spot and Jurassic Park in the number 1 spot. I think that Jurassic World is a closer than most would say close second to the original Jurassic Park. Nothing will match the perfection of the original Jurassic Park, but to be a legacy sequel 20 plus years later, Jurassic World was for 2015 as close to that original feeling that you could probably get. And I love it for that. And even in a vacuum where you just have Jurassic Park and just have Jurassic World, those are two excellent movies to double feature any day of the week.
I am in 100% agreement with you. What's crazy is I went back and forth between the Lost World, Jurassic Park, and then Jurassic World. Just because I love seeing the T Rexes front and center, and then Ian Malcolm in that second film is I loved having him in that one, and I went with this one just being the better story, the better characters overall, the better antagonist with the Indominus. You know, we get the Tyrannosaurus in that second one, but this one knocks it out of the park, like you said. It's pretty much as close as you can get to that first film. We're getting
It knocks it out of the park, no pun intended.
yeah. It's the only film that has a functional Jurassic World or Jurassic Park with tourists and guests and just showing what can happen when the park is in full swing and then a dinosaur gets out. So that's what puts it at number 2 for me.
Yeah, it's sort of the first one that kind of like shows that what if promise of what the first movie was hoping to do, which is like, oh, imagine when the park's running and full of guests and everything's going great. Like imagine the perfect scenario. And this movie shows that they've been doing it for many years. And it's really, really fun to see that, to get to see the park like at, maybe something to the effect of how John Hammond might have dreamed it to be. And then to kind of see it all come crashing down. Like it just creates this whole other thriller aspect to it that I really like.
Absolutely. So I agree with you on that, with Jurassic Park 3 in the 4 spot at the bottom, The Lost World, Jurassic Park in the 3 spot, Jurassic World in 2, and of course then our favorite of this franchise so far still is the original Jurassic Park. So I 100% agree with you there.
And I'll say finding where these first four fit is a very easy task for me. Trying to decide where Fallen Kingdom fits amongst the, I'll admit the my top, amongst these 4 spots, trying to figure out exactly which ones Fallen Kingdom and Dominion are better than or worse than might be the challenge for me.
I think where our next 2 episodes, where Fallen Kingdom and Dominion land, you might be a little surprised when I get to my rankings on those.
And it's always funny because I can never read that as I've got a higher opinion of them or I've got a lower opinion of them. And I know for all of the Friday the 13th, we were both saying like, we might have a hot take here later. And it turned out that both of our hot takes was that our favorite was the remake. So who knows where we'll land.
Absolutely, but I mean, we have 2 more episodes of this. I mean, clearly this film, Jurassic World, was followed up by a direct sequel in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, released June 22nd of 2018. So before we get out of here, that is our next episode. I am looking forward to that. I did get the chance to see that one in theaters, and I had a good time with it. So that should be another fun conversation piece in the Jurassic World and Jurassic Park franchise.
Absolutely looking forward to it.
So before we get out of here, of course, I will thank Chris. It's always a good time, and I look forward to hitting the continuing Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom with you on the next one.
100%.
So thank you. Thanks to anyone who's out there listening. Again, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom on our next episode, and until next time.
Do you hear yourself when you talk? This is gonna happen. With or without you boys. Progress always wins, man. Maybe progress should lose for once.